Shalom. This week's Torah portion, Parshat Re'eh, in the middle of Deuteronomy, has the dietary rules that are basically repeated from Leviticus 11 in Deuteronomy 14. But one of the main differences is that it adds the verse which occurs two other times in the Torah, don't cook a kid in the mother's milk. Now, you could say don't cook a kid in the mother's milk only means don't take a particular baby goat and cook it in its mother's milk. But why would it say it three times? And is that really the only issue? So our rabbi said, no, it's really a much more grand way of saying don't eat milk and meat together. Don't cook it together. You have to have separate pots and pans. You cannot eat it together. Now, why? Is it that it'll go bad? Is something physically bad about it? No. It has nothing to do with it. It's part of the whole ethical system of kashrut eating. God doesn't want us to kill human beings. And it says so clearly, don't murder. But you have to train people habitually. You should see my other video on why we need God, constantly and through ritual and education to constantly train people to sanctify life. And one way to do that is by urging them to be vegetarians, as God did to Adam, and saying to Noah, if you've got to eat meat, then don't eat any blood. Then Abraham saying, and if you're going to eat meat, then only eat certain animals. And to Moses, eat in a certain way. And having a couple people trained to kill them this way, and drain the blood, and check the organs, and certainly don't mix the thing that represents life, which is milk, with the thing that represents death, which is dead flesh. And when you eat a cheeseburger, you're mixing up life and death, and that's the last thing you need to do. So by disciplining yourself to have separate categories of life and death, hopefully we'll be able to train ourselves to respect life. Now, there are certain tricks you can do. You can get fake ice cream that's not having milk products in it, and you can get margarine that has no milk products in it, and you can get fake meat and have that on your cheese pizza. Yes, technically you can do all of that stuff and get away with it, and there's no legal problem Jewishly. But the point is still clear. Don't eat a hamburger with cheese. Don't eat a milkshake when you're having a hamburger. Separate them. Now, how long do you wait? Well, Orthodox wait about 6 hours. And that's because the Eastern European glass of the Ramah on the Shulchan Aruch says that was the custom in Eastern Europe. Central Europe was more like 3 hours, and some Jews wait 1 hour. I know some Jews don't wait at all. And one of the issues is whether it's, the question is it mixing in the stomach or is it mixing in the mouth? Well, and there's a big debate about that, but the bottom line is you should segregate the two meals. Don't eat them together. Whatever your custom is of waiting. Many conservative rabbis wait 3 hours. I think on another tape I told the story of being on a bus on a tour to Israel with Orthodox, Reform, and conservative rabbis, and we stopped at an army base and had a meal, and then 2 hours and 45 minutes later we stopped at a little kiosk that sold only ice cream and pop. And so the Reform rabbis who don't in general pay attention to the meat and milk prohibition, or at least at that time, they ran right off and got the ice cream. The Orthodox rabbis still had 3 hours, so they weren't going to get any ice cream. The conservative rabbis, sawing it over, they were waiting, and the bus driver got impatient, wanted to get on the bus before the 3 hours were up, since we had meat. So we all kind of decided we grabbed the ice cream just as the bus was gunning and kind of got it in right at the wire, and it was kind of an interesting scene about the milk and meat prohibitions in Judaism. But it actually has a very holy purpose of trying to help us remember to respect life. Don't cook a kid in the mother's milk. Have separate milk and meat pots and pans and dishes and silverware. Eat the meal separately. Keep the food separate. Don't cook it together. And maybe we'll reinforce constantly the very important idea, which eludes the culture of death in fundamentalist Islam today, which is blowing up mosques and blowing up schools and killing people at random. The culture of death versus Judaism, which is a culture of life. Pro-life in its most profound sense, respect life. And we start by doing that, by not eating milk and meat, to train ourselves every single moment of our life that we have to respect life.